I'm traveling over 1,000 miles for a shot at fresh ahi tuna. But we only have 4 days to make it there, find, then shoot the fish, package it to bring home, and make it back in time for work on Monday. The big tuna that my family and I speared earlier this year has long been eaten, so it was time for a resupply mission. My good friend Jack invited me on a 4-day trip back down to Central America, and I just couldn't say no. This time, Jack and I are joined by Scott and Frankie, 2 guys who have never speared a yellowfin before. And the goal is to land enough fish for everyone to bring some home, and to get these 2 on their first yellowfin tuna. But with 1,000 miles of travel, 8 hours of driving through a foreign country at night, and a very short time frame to land some fish, if we don't find the tuna fast, or if we miss out on any opportunities, we're likely going home with nothing more than a few wasted PTO days. After meeting up at the airport, we make the short 2-hour flight down to Central America, then pick up our rental car. Doing things a little bit different this time. We're actually renting a car and taking that to where we're going to be spearfishing. We'll see how it goes. I've never driven to this area. After picking up the guys back at the airport, we sit in bumper-to-bumper traffic, only extending our 8-hour drive. But after driving through the night, we make it to where we're staying around 2 in the morning. And with only 3 days to dive, there was no time to sleep in the next morning. We had to get our gear ready before going to bed. The next morning, we load up the truck, head down to the marina, load up the boat, and start the long run offshore. Fortunately, the weather is absolutely beautiful, which will make covering ground and finding tuna much easier. We're heading out with Captain Pedro, a local guide who specializes in fishing charters here. The truth is, he doesn't take out too many spearfishermen, but we're excited to show him the efficiency and the selectivity of force feeding the fish. To find the tuna over here, you have to look for birds and porpoises. And once you find them, it's just a matter of getting in front of where they're heading and making a dive to try to intercept the tuna. Having never speared a yellowfin before, Frankie and Scott get the first drop, and I follow behind with the camera. Scott makes a drop and starts searching for the tuna below. These kinds of drops are always heart-pounding, with the dirty water around you making it difficult to see the fish until they're close enough to shoot. Scott does well to look in every direction. These fish often show up from where you would least expect them, but before long, he's out of air and has to head up to the surface. We hop back in the boat and Pedro takes us back up in front of the pods of dolphin. This style of spearfishing is fast-paced, with only a single opportunity per drop to get in front of the fish. For the most part, the captain's job is the most important, because positioning the boat just a few feet either side of the pod can determine if the divers get a shot or not. Frankie hops in the water just as we get in front of the pod of dolphins. As the diver, the main job is to get in the water exactly when the captain tells you to, and to dive as fast as possible while still having enough air to hang out in that ideal depth of around 40 to 60 feet. Once you get to this depth, it's just a matter of hoping that the tuna swim within range. The fish are moving so fast, it's not really possible to chase them down, but you will have just enough time to take a few kicks to position yourself for a shot if you can spot the fish while they're still swimming your way. Frankie spots the dolphins, and he knows that the tuna shouldn't be far behind. For whatever reason, the tuna here follow the dolphins, with the main theory being that the dolphin used echolocation to find baitfish, and the tuna follow behind for an easy meal. Frankie spots the tuna and tries to close the distance, but they're on the far side of the pod of dolphins. Sometimes you can do everything right, but to land a fish, it takes a bit of luck. And in our case, it's a matter of trial and error until we get close enough for a shot. Pedro gets us back on the tuna, and Frankie and Jack get the first drop.
Go, 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 2 in, 2 in.
We then reposition, and Scott and I hop in on the other side of the pod of dolphins, basically ensuring that one of our 2 groups will get a chance at the fish. As Scott gets in the water, we can already see the tuna from the surface, but they're pretty far away and they're moving fast. Scott keeps moving down towards the fish and keeps looking to his left, the direction that the fish are coming from. The tuna are traveling all in the same direction, so there's a chance as he closes the distance to the school, he'll find one of the closer fish within range. Just as it seems that the school is gone, he sees one huge tuna much closer than the others. He lines up a shot, pulls the trigger, and the fish takes off. We can see that the shaft is completely through the fish, which is a great sign of a shot that's going to hold. But just as we celebrate on our way to the surface, the gun gets ripped out of Scott's hands and heads down with the fish. These fish can take these floats down hundreds of feet. Even though the gun floats, who knows where it would float to the surface. Pedro takes the boat to pick up Jack and Frankie so they can come and give us a hand with the fish.
He's got one on about 100.
Woo! Scotty boy shot his first, and it's a good one. We gotta get a fighting float, and then Frankie's got a spare gun.
And fortunately, on their way back to us, they find the gun. While waiting for Jack to bring the fighting float, Scott slowly brings the fish to the surface while fighting against the weight of the tuna that's struggling to get away. Before long though, we can begin to see the fish beneath us. We can tell that the shot is going to hold, but we send Frankie down to put a second shot in the fish with the hopes of stoning it. Stoning the fish will mean the fish will not struggle any longer, and it makes bringing it to the surface and getting in the boat a lot easier. Frankie gets that perfect shot in the fish, but the nerves make it spin and take off towards the surface. Getting tangled in this line can be incredibly dangerous, so we all try to give the fish some room as it makes its way up to the surface. As Scott gets his hands in the gills of the fish, we know the fight is over. Scott couldn't have asked for a better first yellowfin tuna, and as we put the fish in the boat, we get a look at just how big this tuna is.
That's over 100.
Yeah, I think so.
Dude, heck yeah.
And it's been gutted already.
It's like at the end of my dive, just looking around, and this thing swam up end of the school by himself, just swam kind of right up to us, probably within 10 feet.
Dude.
And shot him mid-body, good holding shot. And
It stunned him pretty good, and then he swam right for us.
yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy. Especially the backup shot. The backup shot, the thing darted to the surface. I was like, oh shoot, oh shoot.
Took the gun. Man, that scared
That
me
was
for a
scary.
second there.
Oh yeah.
When the float
Yeah.
line came up and it didn't have my gun on it, I was like, damn, I don't even get to use it. With one epic fish in the boat, we got back on the school of dolphins, hoping to get Frankie on his first yellowfin while the diving was good. With Scott sitting out a couple of drops, I got the chance to get in the water with the gun. And on the first drop I get in, I can tell that the water is much dirtier than before, which means that the dolphins and the tuna were moving into some dirtier water. This makes things a bit more difficult. It's harder to see the fish, and sometimes by the time you see them, you only have a few seconds to take a shot, and that's if you can see them at all. As I get down to my desired depth of around 50 feet, I keep looking for the sight of a tuna. This is the waiting game. The longer you stay, the better chance you have of seeing a fish, but when holding your breath, you only have so long. Towards the end of the dive, I begin to spot some shadows off in the distance, and I start to kick that way. As I swim closer and closer, the shadows turn into faint outlines of tuna. And beneath me, I spot a really nice fish just within range. I line up a shot and pull the trigger. The fish takes off with my float line, and I head for the surface, ready for my next breath of air. There is nothing better than coming up to the side of your float tombstoning above you. With the help of the fighting float, I inch the fish closer and closer to the surface until it's shallow enough for Frankie to take a drop to put a second shot in the fish. With a great second shot in my fish, Frankie was able to bring it up to the surface so that I could get my hands on my first fish of the trip. It wasn't nearly as big as I thought it was, but I'll take it. They taste just as good. And after getting that fish in the boat, it was getting late and we were ready to head in for the day. On the run in, Pedro wanted to save some time, so he started cleaning the tuna on the back of the boat. He took one of the loins from the smaller tuna, sliced it thin, and put it in a bowl with soy sauce and wasabi. The taste of fresh tuna with a beautiful sunset view has to be one of the best parts of these spearfishing missions. With a day and a half left of diving, we were looking forward to getting another chance at these fish tomorrow. The next morning is another beautiful, slicked out day, and we start by fueling up the boat, then heading offshore to try to find another pod of dolphin, and hopefully some big tuna. We spend a lot of the morning covering ground, searching the horizon with our binoculars and watching the radar, but it's like the dolphins had just vanished overnight. But lucky for us, we come across the second best thing you can find out here. A huge tree, surrounded by baitfish in thousands of feet of water. You never know what you're gonna see on a piece of offshore debris this big, so we hop in to check it out. As I swim up to the giant tree, I just can't believe how much life there is around it. There are as many jacks and rainbow runners and triggerfish and triple tail as you can count. And in the middle of them all are 2 mahi. The fish have these strange scratches across their bodies like I've never seen before. And I can't help but wonder what could have caused them, when suddenly a dolphin swims up from underneath us. I can imagine he's not too happy that there's competition for the meal it was trying to have. The mahi somehow felt that we would protect them from the dolphin. They were swimming all around us, and as bad as I felt for these poor fish, I know that the dolphin needs to eat to survive, and there's nothing I could do to prevent nature from taking its course. It's just incredible how the vast majority of the water out here is barren, without a single sign of life. Yet something as simple as a floating tree can create its own ecosystem, where the baitfish gather around the log for protection, the mahi gather around the log to eat the baitfish, and the dolphin gather around the log to eat the mahi. This entire food chain is born around this single piece of wood that started off who knows how far away. Jack and I each take a few minutes to appreciate being surrounded with this much marine life, and I wonder if anyone will ever dive this exact log again. Frankie and Scott pose for a few photos, then we decide to keep looking for tuna. But after another few hours with no luck in finding birds, dolphins, or schools of tuna, we decide to go to Plan B. We start the run in to get closer to shore, where giant pinnacles rise up hundreds of feet, forming epic reefs. The goal here is to shoot enough snapper for dinner, and hopefully get Frankie on his first Cubera snapper while we're at it. Unlike the tuna, we get plenty of snapper back home, so we don't need to bring any back home with us. But if we do end up shooting more than we can eat tonight, we will leave any extra here with Pedro to share with his family and friends. The bad thing about diving these reefs is the visibility. Just like with the tuna, when you can't see very far in the water, things get pretty challenging. But unlike targeting tuna, these fish stay close to the structure on the bottom in predictable areas. It's just a matter of landing on the right spot and acting fast when you do spot a fish. As Frankie approaches the bottom, he readies his gun so he can take a quick shot if a snapper comes into view. But the visibility is just so bad, we can barely see anything. A Cubera comes out of the murk for just a second, but moves away before Frankie can line up a good shot in the fish. Jack finishes his breathe up and makes his first drop on the reef. When the visibility is this bad, your safety on the surface can lose sight of you pretty quickly, and the currents near the bottom can be a lot stronger or even going in a different direction than it is on the surface, which means you may get to the surface far away from your buddy. This is why we like to follow behind the shooter with a camera. Not only do we get this great footage, but it keeps an eye on the diver the entire drop, and if something goes wrong, the cameraman can give the shooter a hand or surface to get help. As the bottom comes into view, Jack keeps his gun ready to extend in case he sees a fish. Jack keeps looking in every direction, hoping to see a nice-sized snapper for dinner, and he slowly kicks along the reef, trying to cover ground in the limited visibility. All of a sudden, Jack spots a nice snapper. He lines up a shot and pulls the trigger. Grabbing the shooting line immediately, Jack tries to keep the fish out of the bottom so that it doesn't get tangled up in the reef below. It's no monster, but it's a good sized fish for dinner. Not quite enough to feed us all. We were gonna need to land a couple more fish. Our captain moves us over to another spot that's supposed to be a shipwreck, and it's my turn to dive. As I slowly sink down through the murky water, I see lots of life around me, which is a great sign. Then, all of a sudden, this huge ship. Seeing a ship this size in dirty water just sends a shiver down my spine. But before I can think about it too much, I see a big school of Cubera, point the gun, and pull the trigger. I get a good shot in the largest of the fish, but then I need to keep it out of the wreck. Playing tug of war when you're holding your breath is a real challenge, but fortunately I'm able to keep the fish out of the structure and get them just far enough away from the wreck to ease off the pressure so I can get back to the surface. As I make it to the surface and bring the fish to me, I can tell that this is a perfect sized cubera for dinner tonight. It was awesome to land this fish on such a cool spot, and I was looking forward to making another drop to get another look at the wreck. After telling Frankie about the big cubera I'd seen on the wreck, he was eager for a shot at one himself. We had reset the boat up current, hopped in the water, and began slowly drifting with the current towards the spot. This is a great way to breathe up for a long breath hold, but it's impossible to know exactly when to drop, especially when you can't see the bottom. As we descend through the murky water, we begin to see some life, which is a great sign that we are on top of the wreck. Then, the hull comes into view. We had landed right on the bow of the ship. Frankie decides to sink down below the hull to check underneath the wreck for the cubera. There are small snapper everywhere, but Frankie is patient. He wants his first cubera to be a good one. The combination of dirty water and how dark it is at this depth makes seeing the fish under the hull of the boat a real challenge. But when a big cubera swims into view, Frankie takes a quick shot, hits the fish, and it takes off. Being under a wreck at this depth with a struggling fish is dangerous, especially if the line tangles you up. But just as the fight is about to begin, Frankie's line breaks, losing his shaft and his first cubera all in one go. All he can do is swim up and shake his head.
I don't know what happened. I think it must have tore.
It's Jack's turn to drop, so after resetting our drift, Jack begins his drop and slowly makes his way down into the dirty water. Hopeful to find the wreck below, he kicks down, but there's not much life to indicate that he dove at the right spot. He continues downward with his head up, looking for what's in front of him. Jack finally starts to make out the bottom, and before long, he is right on top of the wreck. His timing for the dive was perfect. Jack takes some time searching all around the hull of the wreck, does a little bit of grunting trying to call in the cubera snapper, but after not seeing much, he swims up over the top of the wreck to see if there are any fish on the other side. Jack peeks into the cabin of the wreck, then climbs over top of it to look over the other side of the wreck. And as he looks down, he catches the shadow of a cubera beneath him, quickly lines up a shot, but unfortunately, the shot misses its mark.
You had to point and shoot. Yeah, it's like this size there.
After that last drop, we knew we had spooked most of the nice fish off the wreck, and it was getting late. We still needed to land one more fish for dinner. Pedro took us to one last reef on our ride back in, and we had noticed that the first drop on every spot had been the best, probably because the first diver gets to jump on the fish that don't know it's coming yet. So on this last drop, we sent Frankie in first. As Frankie made his way to the bottom, he started to see smaller fish and dark shadows beneath them. And as he sank deeper and deeper, he realized he was looking at an entire school of cubera snapper. When you're faced with this many opportunities, it's hard to make a decision. And while Frankie was frozen with choice paralysis, the school started to move away. Frankie tries his best to pick out the largest cubera in the school, but they're all about the same size. And then this big almaco jack swims in, distracting him for a moment before he looks back to the big school of cubera around him. By now, he's close to the bottom, and he decides the best course of action is going to be to get to the bottom and wait for a big fish to come in and check him out. And as he gets his hands on the bottom and looks back up, he sees a big cubera, lines up a shot, pulls the trigger, but the safety's on. He struggles with the safety, running out of air, looks for the closest fish that has stripes, and pulls the trigger. Frankie thinks he's shot his first cubera snapper. As he finally brings his fish up to the surface, we both realize he'd mistaken the identity of his target. Frankie had shot something I'd never seen before, but it looked like a grunt. Not necessarily a target species, but today we were going to find out if it was any good for dinner. That night, we carried our fish into a local restaurant in a sack, enjoyed some of the tuna from the day before, and had some great snapper prepared, both fried and blackened. Unfortunately, the restaurant didn't separate the fish by species, but it all tasted pretty good, so whatever Frankie shot had to have been pretty decent. Tomorrow was our last day, and the plan was to try to spear in the morning, then make the 8-hour drive in the afternoon, and make it to our airport on time for our flight tomorrow night. If we were going to bring home some tuna, we had to capitalize on every opportunity we get tomorrow, or risk going home empty-handed. It's the morning of our last day, and knowing that we don't have much time on the water, we get an early start. Pedro brought his son to join us today, and I could tell it was a bit like bring your kid to work day when your dad has the coolest job in the world. With a bit of luck, Pedro gets us right on the pod of dolphins as soon as we get offshore, and we know it's time to put some fish in the boat. As the only two to not shoot a tuna yet, Jack and Frankie go first. We line up on a pod of dolphins, and Pedro gives us the go-ahead to hop in. As Frankie and I hop in the water, we can tell that the water is much clearer than the days before, which is a great sign for some easier spearfishing. We're going to be able to see the fish coming from a ways away and line up accordingly. As Frankie makes his way down to where we expect to see the tuna, his line gets caught on his gun. Getting tangled in this line when you put a shot in a big tuna can be a big risk. But before I can get to him to untangle him, the line frees itself. By now we were surprised that we hadn't seen much, but then the pod of dolphins comes into view, and Frankie tries to hold his position while waiting for the tuna to hopefully appear behind them. The sight of the dolphins playing in the crystal clear water is mesmerizing, and we almost forget for a second why we're holding our breaths down here. But the view Jack had off in the distance was a completely different story. Rather than running into a pod of dolphins, Jack spots this huge school of tuna. He takes his time to try to find one of the larger fish, but when the school starts to run out, he points and shoots, but misses his target. Pedro positions us back up in front of the dolphins for another chance, and I swap out with Frankie. As soon as I hit the water, I look up to the sight of dolphins jumping all around me, and I know I need to dive as soon as possible. I take one last deep breath, then make my way down to around 50 feet, and I'm already seeing dolphins around me. I know that I don't have much time before the school of tuna should be swimming through. As I swim down, I can see dolphins off in the distance, both on my right and left. But as I level out, there's nothing close. I start to kick to where I saw the last pod of dolphins, but nothing else comes out of the blue. I look off to my right, and that's when I spot the entire school of tuna, and Frankie starts pointing and grunting to me to make sure that I see them. I start to kick that way, but the fish are already primarily past me. Rather than taking a rushed shot, I start to look off to my left to see if there are any other fish coming. But as I wait for a better opportunity, it doesn't look like there's any other fish behind the school. Frankie loses hope and starts to film the school that's already past us. When finally another wave comes through, I quickly line up on a fish and pull the trigger. My shot goes clean through the spine of the fish, nearly immobilizing it, and I head to the surface, desperate for a breath of air. Frankie and I celebrate on the surface, but then we notice something's not right.
Can't find that thing.
I think I did. Float's not even going.
The float hadn't even moved, so we look back in the water and the fish is right at our fin tips. Like the last time this happened, when the fish is doing circles around you with a line attached to it, it's real easy to get tangled up with it. But I decide to do something pretty stupid. Still gassed from my last dive, I decide to try to make a drop, grab the fish, and stab it to bring it to the surface. Not only is this an easy way to get tangled up with the fish, but swimming around swinging a knife is just not a great idea. Fortunately, it works out for me here. But looking back at this footage, I might be a little bit wiser the next time I try something like this.
Yeah! That was sick!
Oh, bro, check out the hook in his mouth. That's badass.
While it's no monster, this is a perfect size fish that'll give me just enough tuna to fill my carry-on bag to bring back home. I make sure to bleed the fish well so that I preserve the quality of the meat. And while doing so, we happened to run into Jack, who had a tuna of his own on the line. On the same drop, Jack pushed a little bit deeper to around 60 or 70 feet, where he found a huge school of tuna in some dirtier water. Certain to not make the same mistake twice, Jack is patient and waits for a fish that is well within range and is moving slow enough for him to line up a good shot. And just when it seems like it's not going to happen, that fish swims out of the murk right up to him, and he gets a great holding shot in the fish and watches as the line takes off.
I got one. Yeah.
Jack brings the fish to the surface a little bit at a time, while Scott gets ready on the boat to hop in for a second shot in his fish. Scott takes his time to make sure he gets a shot in the head of the fish so that none of the meat is damaged from the shot. And with 2 spears in the fish, it wasn't long before Jack was able to get his hands on it and a knife in it. Back on the boat, Jack and I posed for a few photos with our fish. Doubling up on this drop was a best case scenario.
Just shot that tuna. Had a little jewelry. This has got to be the equivalent of a band on a duck or something. Let's see if we can get Frankie on one.
Pedro started cutting up the fish because we knew we weren't going to have time to do so back at the dock, so I started driving for the guys and tried to put them on another school of fish.
Go.
As Frankie hops in the water, he dives almost immediately, and Jack watches from the surface as they're surrounded by porpoises. As Frankie gets to his target depth, he levels out, readies his gun, and spots a huge school of tuna. Frankie slowly swims closer and closer to the school, careful not to spook the fish, while waiting for a good one to come within range. He looks beneath him, and that's when he spots the fish. He quickly lines up a shot, pulls the trigger, but the shot misses its mark. And as they head to the surface, unsuccessful, they're greeted by a wall of tuna. Fortunately, Scott had a bit better luck. Back on the boat, I watched the big orange rife float take off across the surface. Scott had shot a fish.
Oh yeah.
But then, when I turn around and watch it disappear beneath the surface, I knew this was a good one. A couple minutes later, the float resurfaces and Scott calls for a fighting
Yeah, give me
float.
1 second.
With the fighting float in hand, Scott starts making some progress on the fish, and it is not long before we can see the dark shadow of a big tuna beneath us. Maybe a bit emboldened by my stunt earlier, Frankie goes down to try to knife the fish. And this is why this is a bad idea. Every inch of progress we had made gets ripped away as the fighting float disappears to the depths. You would not want to be tangled in this line. It took several minutes for the float to come back into view, and we watched as it slowly floated back to the surface. It's safe to say that if that was you tied up down there, you'd be having a bad day. Jack goes down to place a second shot in the fish, which is a lot safer than trying to get him with the knife. He takes his time because the fish is still moving around, but gets a good shot in the head of the fish, and with 2 spears in it, we're able to get it to the surface in no time at all. Landing this fish was a team effort, and I come over with the knife to secure it, then hand it off to Scott to brain and bleed. With this third fish secured for the day, we were confident we were all going home with plenty of tuna to hold us over for the next several months. But we still had one goal to accomplish before we could call it a day. Frankie still had not landed his first yellowfin, and before we went in, we wanted to give him a couple more opportunities. Frankie descends in the clearest water we've had the entire trip, and we can already see countless dolphins beneath us. By the look of it, this is the biggest school of dolphins we have encountered the entire trip, and hopefully that means we're about to see some incredible tuna. As Frankie levels out at his desired depth, we just float in neutral buoyancy, surrounded by dolphins. It's absolutely incredible. And just as we're about to give up on the dive, Frankie looks off in the distance and spots exactly what he's looking for. This huge pod of dolphins has a huge school of tuna following it, but unfortunately, they're all out of range. Frankie heads for the surface, knowing he doesn't have many more opportunities left. We hop in the boat, then reset on the pod of dolphins. As the bubbles begin to clear, we can see the tuna beneath us. Frankie has to get down there fast before they're gone. Frankie is absolutely surrounded by yellowfin tuna. And he picks out a fish, lines up a shot, and misses. It was just a little bit too far, and the fish was swimming away from him, and the shaft just couldn't get there. Frankie heads for the surface, while I hang out just to enjoy the view. What happens next is probably the coolest thing I've seen the entire trip. Holding nothing more than the camera, the tuna aren't afraid of me at all, and they swim almost close enough to touch. Holding the camera is an entirely different experience from spearfishing. Your role shifts from an active participant to a spectator, and the fish can somehow tell. It's overwhelmingly peaceful, except for Frankie's screams of excitement and frustration at the surface. At that point, we called it a day and started to run in, but before we made it in, we came across another one of those big logs, and we decided to put out a line for Pedro's son to try to catch a fish. And sure enough, it didn't take long. It's incredible how catching fish is just fun, no matter how old you are. And now the not-so-fun part begins. We unload the boat, carry all of the stuff back up to the truck, drive back to the apartment, then vacuum seal every single piece of tuna we had just shot for the ride home. And after loading the truck with all of our gear, we drove the 8 hours back to the airport. It was a long day, but well worth it. This was a trip we would remember for the rest of our lives, and we were going to have fresh ahi tuna that we harvested ourselves for the next several months. Thank you guys so much for following along with these adventures. I hope to see you in the next one.